Okay, it is Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. And if you're listening closely to the reports coming out of Russia's southern flank this morning, well, you can hear the sound of strategic erosion picking up speed.
Accelerating for sure. We have breaking reports coming in, and they're pretty major.
Massive, coordinated drone attacks striking deep into Russia's energy infrastructure. We're talking specifically about the Slavyansk on Kuban refinery.
Which is in Krasnodar Krai, a really critical energy hub for them.
And it wasn't just there. We're seeing simultaneous hits in places like Saratov and Engels as well.
The information is still a bit fragmented, as you'd expect, but the descriptions are, well, they're intense, massive.
Really widespread conflict,
Ones that matter. Refineries that are absolutely vital for their military, for their export supply. They were hit successfully.
Before we really dive into what this all means, just a quick, important appeal for you. Subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Arya for this latest deep dive. We deliver sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we are going deep into Ukraine's sustained campaign of deep strikes and the, well, devastating strategic damage it is inflicting on Russian energy.
Our mission today is really to get you beyond those immediate headlines. We want you to understand not just the damage reports, but the strategic calculus behind all of this.
Because this isn't random.
Not at all. This is a very deliberate asymmetric strategy, and it's exploiting some deep systemic Russian vulnerabilities that are just being amplified relentlessly by Western sanctions.
And the impact has been so immediate, it's already rewritten Moscow's energy playbook. We can actually give you the cliffhangers right now.
Let's do it.
At their peak, these strikes have successfully taken out up to 17% of Russia's entire national refining capacity.
Just think about that number for a second. It's staggering. And that capacity loss, it translates directly into domestic economic pain. We're talking wholesale gasoline prices driven to historic all-time record highs.
Higher even than the 2023 crisis.
Way past that peak, which in turn has forced the Kremlin into this extraordinary position of having to impose and then repeatedly extend export bans on their own gasoline.
So they're sacrificing critical foreign revenue.
Exactly. All just to keep their own domestic markets stable. This deep dive is going to show you how Kiev is turning cheap drones into a strategic choke point. Let's get into it and unpack how this campaign has evolved into really a masterclass in strategic attrition.
So let's start with that evolution. How is what we're seeing now in late 2025 different from what we saw back in 2024?
It's a night and day difference. If you look back at 2024, the strikes were often, single drone hits.
Right, they did some damage, but it was manageable.
It was. Repairs were usually handled in a matter of weeks. It was an inconvenience for Russia, absolutely, but it wasn't a structural national-level crisis.
And this new campaign, which really ramped up around August.
It's fundamentally different. Ukraine is now using these massive attack swarms, and they're designed explicitly to overwhelm layered air defenses.
So it's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game, but it's also a technology game. The drones have much improved navigation, ensuring they hit their marks deep in the rear. And what's really crucial here is this tactic of rolling attacks.
Meaning they hit the same target again and again?
Exactly. By hitting a damaged refinery repeatedly, they're intentionally delaying and frustrating any repair work. They're turning what should be a 2-month fix into a 6-month or even longer bottleneck.
And the targeting philosophy itself has changed. It's not about volume anymore, hitting those big, easy-to-repair storage tanks.
No, now it's all about surgical precision. It's about quality over quantity. We're tracking the targets hit since August Dukta, Ryazan, the Samar Group, and the pattern is clear. They are consistently focused on the primary processing units.
It's the most complex, irreplaceable equipment.
Precisely. We're talking about the crude distillation units, the CDUs.
The core of the whole operation.
Right, the towers that do the initial separation of crude oil. And even more importantly, the catalytic cracking units, which use these incredibly complex chemical processes to produce high-octane gasoline.
And that's all Western-designed machinery.
Almost entirely. So hitting them doesn't just slow production down, it stops it. Cold.
The Slavyansk refinery attack we saw this morning is the perfect case study for this, isn't it? It's in Krasnodar Krai, so it's both.
And Russia is forced to rely on lower-grade fuels for everything, and that includes critical military applications. After earlier strikes, independent assessments already considered that Slavyansk facility to be completely offline.
So the surgical approach is working, it's achieving total suppression, and the logistical placement of these attacks, this whole arc from Ryazan down to Volgograd, that's not an accident.
No, it's designed to maximize domestic disruption. It hits commercial transport, civilian life for tens of millions of people. And like you said, the attacks in Krasnodar directly complicate logistics for the Southern Military District and crucially for the Black Sea Fleet's refueling operations.
It's turning domestic pressure into a real strategic military problem.
And that imposition of cost is really the heart of asymmetric attrition. Ukraine has weaponized distance and cost against Russia's huge geography.
The cost ratio is just mind-blowing when you look at it. Sources are confirming that Ukraine is using these low-cost, domestically produced drones, things like the FP-1 or the UJ-26 Beavers.
Which cost, what, around $50,000?
Troops and logistics hubs.
Right. And instead they have to use these premier assets to protect static commercial infrastructure deep in their own territory.
Okay, let's pause there for a second. That asymmetric cost is undeniable. It's huge. But we have to look at the political calculus. These deep strikes are incredibly effective, yes, but don't they also hand Moscow a massive propaganda tool to justify their own attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure? Is the military gain worth that political cost of escalation?
That's a fair point, and a critical one. And the sources suggest that, yes, Kyiv has accepted that cost. They've made the calculation that the military and economic returns are simply too high to pass up.
Because the success isn't just in the explosions.
Exactly. It's measured in the technological brilliance they're using to defeat Russia's billion-dollar defense networks.
And that technical side is just fascinating. These drones aren't just cheap, they're smart. Sources are detailing the use of swarm attacks combined with, of all things, simple corner reflectors.
It's brilliant. A corner reflector is basically just a cheap triangular piece of aluminum, but it's designed to maximize a radar return.
So it looks like something much bigger on a screen.
It creates a radar signature that mimics a much more expensive cruise missile, like a KH-101. So the Russian air defense computer, on a Panzer S-1 for example, sees a high-priority threat and wastes its million-dollar interceptors chasing.
A piece of metal scaffolding, it's information warfare on a radar screen.
It is. And beyond the decoys, the drones themselves have active countermeasures. We're seeing tactics like ultra-low altitude flight, skimming just 5 meters over the Sea of Azov.
So they're flying under the radar horizon.
Invisible to ground-based systems. And even if they are picked up, their evasive maneuvers are designed to defeat predictive targeting. The UJ-22 drones, for example, are programmed with dynamic altitude variation.
Meaning they just randomly bob up and down.
Random high-frequency changes, yeah, between 40 and 80 meters. And the fire control computers on a system like the Panzer, which need to predict a consistent trajectory to get a hit, just can't cope. Their hit probability plummets.
From what, over 80%?
Down around 30%.
Yeah.
This combination of cheap offense and sophisticated evasion is just fundamentally undermining Russia's entire security doctrine for its rear areas.
And that technical success on the battlefield, it translates directly into economic and political pain back home in Russia. Let's really quantify that market shock.
The numbers really do tell the story of their vulnerability. During the peak periods of this campaign, the cumulative capacity disruption has been, well, significant. We're talking up to 1.1 million barrels per day.
Which is that 10 to 17% figure we mentioned at the top, a huge chunk of their national capacity just gone.
And when those key refineries went offline back in August, the market reaction was instantaneous. Wholesale prices for AI-92 and AI-95 gasoline just soared to historic record highs.
Blasting past the 2023 crisis levels, AI-95 hit over 80,000 rubles a ton.
And that strain is now filtering right down to the Russian consumer. Reports confirm retail prices are ticking up every single week, about 15 to 25 kopecks a liter. And that's happening, despite the government trying to put an informal ban on sharp price hikes.
So the market pressure is just too strong for them to control.
It seems so. And the real political danger for the Kremlin is when shortages become visible. We're seeing confirmed reports of rationing, especially in annexed Crimea, where AI-95 has apparently just vanished from those gas stations.
And it's hitting other regions too, like Zabaykalsky Krai.
For ordinary Russians, this kind of thing, rationing, it brings back some very unsettling memories of the Soviet era. And that directly undermines the Kremlin's whole narrative of stability and resilience.
Which brings us to their policy dilemma. They were forced to impose those export bans on gasoline.
Refined products have much higher quality.
Right, the fuel for tanks prices.
So the civilian gasoline sector becomes the main pressure point. And if Russia has to divert even more capacity to prioritize military diesel, that just deepens the crisis for civilians. It's a painful trade-off.
And that brings us to the final, maybe the most critical piece, the sanctions backfire.
This is why the damage is so lasting.
Exactly. The kinetic strikes are so successful, not just because they hit complex targets, but because they're hitting a system that was already made structurally fragile by sanctions.
Russia's big long-term richness has always been its reliance on Western tech for its most advanced industries.
And that's especially true in refining. The most complex units, the hydrotreaters, the catalytic crackers, were almost all supplied by firms like America's UOP or the Swiss company ABB.
So when one of those units gets damaged by a drone,
sanctions mean they can't get the specialized spare parts, they can't get the proprietary technology, they can't get the Western technical experts needed to do a certified repair.
it's that analogy you used before. You can't fix a BMW with a Lada part.
Russia is structurally incapable of fixing it.
I gave her a much weaker.
They're projecting that the combination of damage and repair difficulty will suppress Russian processing rates until at least mid-2026.
This isn't a temporary problem. It's a structural degradation of their capacity that locks in lower output for the long term.
Which forces them into a quality crisis. If you can't repair the complex secondary units, you have to just maximize basic distillation to meet volume demands.
And that pressure to prioritize volume means they have to abandon producing high-grade Euro 5 and Euro 6 fuels. It diminishes the strategic value and the quality of their entire fuel output.
It fundamentally changes their position as a global energy supplier and, maybe more importantly, complicates their own military logistics down the line.
It does. This campaign has successfully turned a physical attack into a crippling technical and economic bottleneck. And sanctions are the reason it's so incredibly effective.
So to summarize this whole deep dive then,
I think the key takeaway is that Ukraine's deep strike campaign is strategically successful because it achieves this powerful synergy. It uses low-cost kinetic force to relentlessly exploit the existing structural weakness imposed by Western sanctions.
and that limits Russia's financial flexibility. It degrades their logistical throughput for the long term.
It makes every single repair exponentially more complex and time-consuming. It's a textbook example of asymmetric warfare paying off.
And while Russia might have enough diesel for its army right now, the systemic pressure, this degradation in fuel quality, that's going to eventually start complicating military logistics that depend on high-performance, standardized fuels. That's the real test of their resilience in the coming year.
And that's the strategic thought we should leave everyone with. How long can a modern war machine run effectively when the quality of its lifeblood, its fuel supply, is steadily collapsing?
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. And as always, to continue getting these sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of the global defense landscape. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.